And welcome back to the Women in Water Get Real virtual summit, where we're talking about where and why women are leaving from the water career pipeline. How we can stop those leaks and bring women back. And women really of all different disciplines that are mission critical in the water workspace, right? I mean, I think we there is a hang up about being in STEM and that sort of thing. There are other positions in social science, in economics and law and policy that are also mission critical. And not like support roles of admin assistant or communications, which we can get things done without it, but what we're doing as a water industry, there's certain fields that are mission critical. And we have here today, we're very fortunate to have Meghna Mukherjee. Did I say it right?
Yes.
Who is coming to us from the Netherlands with a company called Meta. And they're doing some tremendous work related to women and water. And I think one of the things we're doing in this whole summit, which is coming out during UN Water, is distinguishing between women and water and women working in water. So please join me and welcome Meghna. Did I say that right? Is Meghna?
Yes, it's Meghna. Yes, perfect.
Welcome. Say hello to our audience.
Hello, everyone. Yes, I am Meghna, and thank you for having me here. And I am working for a company called Meta Research. We are based in Netherlands, and I'm currently working on different projects in India and in Ethiopia, where I'm looking at, natural resource management, specifically looking at water, how it is managed. So I see myself as a social science researcher and as a program manager who is handling the different projects.
Yeah. And one of the things that has really that really blocked women for that blocked women for a long time was this idea that you had to be an engineer in order to get ahead in water. And in some cases, the water agency, like the head of division water resources, would be called the state engineer. Right. And the head of the local water agency would be the city engineer. Right. And that, at a time when a lot of women didn't go into those fields, that really blocked out women from becoming general managers or directors of agencies. And people are starting to see the value of some of those other fields. And we are seeing more heads of agencies who are men and women, who are lawyers, who are masters of public administration, who have various types of degrees. So your work in social sciences, why does this matter when we're talking about women in water? And can you kind of address the differences and links between women working in water and the impact of the work we do on women related to water projects?
Yeah. Actually, what you were saying here is right. Like water, like since I joined, I think 5 years back, it has always been considered water sector as a very male dominated field. Like, you have engineers and you have people who are building dams, who are building, irrigation canals, and somehow you always associate it with like that. And for a good amount of time, I think I also associated water sector. But then you find this kind of, while working on projects, you find these kind of gaps, you see, like, okay, if a dam is built, but then who is getting the water? How is it being determined? Where is the water flowing? What are the actor dynamics? What are the norms? So all these things are kind of overlooked. Maybe it's not in their domain, and that's why like this whole domain of a social science researcher in the water sector is so critical. And specifically as a woman, I can see that I sometimes relate more to such kind of things happening on ground than somebody who is doing, say, their work of, say, building something, or planning, designing something, which is equally important. But then how it gets in things get working on ground, there you need somebody who is more objective in that sense, who can see past those norms and those boundaries and go into the intersectionalities that are being played in the society, because it's not something we are talking about way far, it's something which is happening on ground. And I see that as a woman, I don't know, I'm being a bit more biased, I guess, but we do have that thing, and we have always been said that we are more caring, we are more giving, we are the caregivers of the society always, and that tag will always remain with us. So why not just use it for something in this domain, where it's needed.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I think women getting into engineering, every once in a while, I'll run across a woman who, is so determined to, be like one of the boys, and just focus on, just get the damn built, right?
Yes.
And when we started, I mean, here in the US and in other countries as well, when people started doing things like environmental and social impact analysis before going in and building things to understand what those impacts were going to be. Yeah, I mean, my PhD is in civil engineering in water planning and management, and it is figuring out how to do the projects while also incorporating the information we get about social and economic impacts and benefits and whatnot. But I've had people tell me, oh, public meetings. The only reason why we have public meetings is so that we can have everyone sign in and take all their names. And that way, if anyone complains later about something that we've done, we can say, oh, no, you were at the meeting, you heard all about that, right? As opposed to seeing it as an opportunity for a real exchange with the
Yeah.
community. Yeah, and you've worked on some really interesting projects. Give us an example of where you worked on a project that there was a need for social, for consideration of social impacts, particularly on women.
Yeah, I think most of the projects I'm dealing with is kind of looking at, say agricultural development, promotion of better agricultural practices. And you see water as an integral component in water development, in agricultural development. So over there, when you are saying that where will the irrigation, some kind of channel be built, or what kind of drip irrigation system, where it will be installed, you see the men taking the front row in those community discussions, and women just participating because tick mark has to be done, right? Like you have to say gender was maintained, everything was good, but like the questions, everything is being is being asked to the men. Their approval is required. And I've seen it in India, I have seen it in Tanzania, I've seen it in so many places, that just for the sake of keeping those numbers there, you call women, but it's the men who are saying, who are asking. And sometimes as a foreigner, you go to a country and then you're the only female, you realize, who is sitting in the front row, and it becomes really obvious to you that, oh my god, there are no women in the meeting, and they're all there at the back row, just saying yes to any of the decisions being made. And when the decision after the meeting, they used to come to me and ask, okay, what was the meeting about? And I was like, see, that's the issue. Like water anywhere is being you know fetched by women, the most use is by women, and they are not in any decision making place. It's obvious. And then, yeah, next time I would give them a brief, or I would tell like the people in my team to brief them, or to just tell them where it is happening. In India, in any rural place, in gram sabha, if any of the important meetings are being done at the lowest level, nobody takes into consideration the time. So if you're doing it in, say, afternoon, women are not
Mhm.
going to be there because they are busy cooking, they are busy cleaning. who is free during that time? Men are free during that time. So all these small little details, and then they will say, yeah, our thing is done because we communicated. We said that on this day the meeting will be done. The women did not turn up. So what do you do as a person? Then you start tweaking the system itself. So as a social science researcher, you observe these things, you observe what is happening in a society, and then you try to fix it, right? So you try to make sure that the gram sabha is happening either in the morning or late evening, or you have some way of another way of communicating to the women federations, to the groups that are there. So you find innovative methods to bring these things in place.
You know, that is so critical. And this really gets to the heart of, one of the reasons I started Water Citizen to begin with was that, as an engineer, I was getting called in to do a lot of projects on some really critical things like aquifer storage, innovative technologies that there were regulatory barriers to, and how we clear the regulatory barriers to create millions of dollars or billions of dollars in some cases of new projects if we could get rid of the regulatory barriers. So how do we get the right meeting together, the right people at the table? The water energy nexus, that was when the Department of Energy was still saying, we're agency, don't talk to us about water. And people are like, no, we have to think about water and energy. And I would get paid like very little to organize these meetings that brought people together, including one that was an entire semester long series that we made free and open to the public. And we would bring in top water leaders. And, and it was at the end of the day, and we would get a sponsor each time, and my interns would go and we couldn't take money because it was too complicated for the university to take money, but we would get gift cards, and my interns would roll a cart across the street filled with food, and then as soon as we finished the speaker program, we'd move everybody into the hall, and we'd have a whole spread out there so people could actually get something to eat. And then we had conversations, we had connections, we were building trust, we were building loyalty. Because you're right, even we were already seeing this in the planning world, back in the early 2000s, that and especially as people were spending more and more time online, that the only people who would show up at a public meeting were the client, the agency, the utility, or whatever, and their consultants, and people who were hired representatives for stakeholder groups, and rich, old retired white people who had time in the daytime.
Yeah.
Because the people who worked for the utility or the consulting firm, and they don't do evening meetings, right?
Yeah.
So the people, if you want to reach communities of color, if you want to reach low income, if you want to reach underrepresented or underpowered, particularly in countries, and in cultures, overseas, here in the US, wherever, if it's a culture where women are usually not speaking up, they may not be at the meeting, and they certainly aren't going to speak up if they aren't directly asked or spoken to in a side conversation. Somebody was telling me about, some of the UN surveys and World Bank surveys and everything, where they go door to door and they'd ask the man, do you have drinking water? Do you have access to sanitation? And they'd check their little checklist. Check, yes, yes, yes. But the guys are not the ones who are actually getting the water. We're dealing with, broken latrines.
No. Yeah, they won't even know about those things. Yeah, because they are not the one who are managing or handling any of those aspects. So yeah, that's why you have all these nice homes.
Yes. Yeah. And it's also, it's almost a matter of saving face too. Of course we have water.
Yeah,
we wouldn't be so uncivilized as to not have water. But right. We talked about this a lot. The closing the water access, this came out literally days before the lockdown, and we're right about the third anniversary of the lockdown, right at the beginning of COVID. And we just started talking about this, and when COVID hit, And what were our first lines of defense? It was washing your hands. It was staying
Yeah.
hydrated if you get sick. It was, keeping things clean and sanitized. And and for those people who didn't have safe water, reliable water in their homes, didn't have safe sanitation, I mean, you could just do a direct map overlay. And we did that with a sociologist who
Mm.
did the study on water access gap in the US and then looked at the COVID hotspots. And it was a direct correlation. I mean, how did COVID help to raise awareness of who was getting impacted the most?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I absolutely agree. And such kind of crisis actually brings out that kind of information out to the public. Otherwise, it's more like status quo. That's how it has been happening. Domestic water is not there. Water to wash hands is not there. But when the WHO is saying that, okay, you have to wash your hands after every time you go out, then people start actually understanding and going deep into those facts, that but we don't even have water to drink. How can we have water to wash our hands? Like it's that simple. So how do you do? And then on the other hand, you're having all these medicines made that will stop COVID and everything. And on the other side, if you're not going to the root cause of it, then yeah, how can it be solved? So every issue is kind of linked, and it all links back to water, whether it is this COVID crisis, whether it's kind of energy crisis, whether it's kind of food crisis. It always links down to water, that who has water, how is it being used, and
Mm.
yeah, like who is getting it in the first place and who is not.
And one of the other things that's come up now that people are trying to pretend that COVID is completely over, and we're just going to go back to normal the way things were back in 2019, and yet we still have some supply chain stuff. And in fact, I've had the chance to work with and get to know this guy from Logistics Management Institute who is like one of the top experts on water in the supply chain. Like the
Mm.
military will hire him to calculate out, where is the limiting factor on the supplies that we need for army boots or tanks or
Yeah.
whatever. And so he was hired to look into the rollout of the COVID vaccine. Was it vaccine? No, it was the testing kits, little testing kits, right? Suddenly everyone's sending out all these testing kits. And if there was a water shortage,
Mm.
can you guess what would have been impacted?
Yeah,
It
like
was the wood mix.
the water in the.
No, it was the wood for the sticks. If there was a drought and we didn't have the lumber,
Mm.
we could cut down the trees and process the lumber and everything, the pavement, the wood industry to make the sticks
Mm.
to be able to do all those test kits. And so I mean, has your work also involved looking at water, not just for drinking and sanitation, but also water for other uses? You mentioned agriculture, other manufacturing. We're dealing with an energy crisis, related to the war in Ukraine and Russia, and how do we how do we like get out of the box of thinking, okay, we build dams, we are dam builders, we build dams, we're going to build this dam, it's going to have this much water, and that's all we need to think about, as opposed to thinking about how are people using that water, is that use changing over time, what happens if you have an emergency, if you have a flood, if you have a natural disasters that are getting worse with climate change. I mean it all fits together, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It all does. And actually, you're talking about how water is in different sectors and how do we work over here. Of course, agriculture is an important part, but apart from that, you have how agriculture is, or how water is, say, affecting roads. So sometimes roads are built over the hydrological lines. So and when there are
Mm.
floods, it's the first to go away, so your mobility is impacted at that point. You talk about COVID crisis and you talk about having hygiene, you talk You don't talk about laundry, like, how important it is to keep your clothes, keep your, we were told that as soon as you come from outside, you have to wash your clothes. But where is the water to do that? How far do you have to go to, wash your clothes? So all these things, like, it's not just about washing hands, it's not just about drinking water, it's about all these different things. That, are you making those accessible? Are you even thinking of those when you're making decisions of supplying water, of having some kind of a system in place of pipelines? But all these things are also important while making roads for the, for the least amount. Of course, like, the highways and everything is good, but the last mile road to the village is always broken. So why is it that it always gets eroded every monsoon or every rainy season? So there has to be some kind of link, right? So have those hydrological models been studied? So all these things need to then looked after, because it's not just the road. What it impacts is even greater. It has a ripple effect on communities, on everything. They will have a blockade from hospitals, from groceries, from market. So one decision can have an adverse impact on the lives of so many people. So yeah, we are working on such kind of topics, and we are looking at how do we make the road design better, how do we involve decision making in order to provide access for, say, better laundry practices, or for agricultural innovation, how do we make it more participatory, do we make it more inclusive in that sense? So yeah, those are some of the things that we are currently working in.
Yeah. I mean, it's so important to really recognize that being able to do the technical stuff of putting a model together, it's almost mechanics at that. It's knowing what information to put into the model. It's knowing how to, what that model, are we doing the right thing? Is it doing the thing right? It's not just, does the model work and spit out a number? Did you actually put in the right inputs? People put inputs, even with all this chat GPT AI
Yes.
stuff. You only are going to get as good of artificial writing as your ability to tell that chat GPT,
Yes.
do it in this style, do it as if this. You have to give it instructions.
Yeah.
And in order to give it the right instructions, you have to know something about the human element of,
Yeah.
of what it is you're dealing with.
Yes, yes. And that's why it is so important that uh, we as researchers, as, action researchers, as technical expertise of engineers, of policymakers, of lawyers, we all come together and work as one unit. It's not different things that we are doing. It's all linked together. And sometimes it goes missing, We are not looking into the policies which are and then we are saying, okay, let's do this, but then the policy is completely different. So how do you make it together? And that's a challenge. That's a real challenge. It is as complicated as a wicked problem. So your problem is wicked, your solution is also getting getting more complicated. But
Wicked problems. I have that on my LinkedIn profile.
yeah.
Water problems are wicked.
Yes, yes. And to solve those wicked problems, we need a kind of a systems approach. We need to network with different people. We need to bring all these different stakeholders, from the technical part to the social part to, say, the local communities, all together, and then come up with a solution as to what is the solution exactly, right? So it can't be just me saying, okay, as a social science researcher, this is how it is. I have to talk with the technical person. I have to understand what the needs are. So it's all linked together in that manner.
So here you are as a social scientist in this very technical field. We can see what the links are of having good informed social science. And by the way, social scientists can be, the men who run social science can be real jerks sometimes to the women who are like doing all the work and running the models, and then they're the ones that present the results, right? They're the ones with the names on the paper.
Yeah.
And then especially the fact that here you are, I'm guessing you're not a native to the Netherlands, right?
No, no, I'm from India.
Okay. So how has that been for you to bring all this knowledge and expertise and perspective and whatnot on the projects that you're working on? I don't know if your firm is woman owned or minority owned, or what is the environment in your company, in your industry, when you go talking to top policy decision makers? Are you the one talking, or are you the one at the back of the room at that point?
Yeah, it is both sometimes, but no, we so my company is of course owned by yeah, I won't say of course, but it is owned by a Dutch man. But in my field, I think I have learned to situate myself in those conditions, and then bring my analysis or my outputs forward. And of course, it's not easy always, because sometimes you have to work diplomatically, and at those times it depends on who will speak better. But yeah, we at the beginning, I think in my career, when I was back in India or here, you kind of see yourself as the secretary, so sometimes, so one making notes, one doing the minutes of the meeting, and then but that's, I think, I'm sure, I'm a bit optimistic saying that maybe it's not of women, but maybe it's because of a junior position that you are in, that
Mhm.
you are sometimes given these kind of tasks, because that's kind of the learning phase. But now I think more and more I try to push myself forward in these kind of meetings and stay and opinate my voice. And I think I always feel that my strength lies in me putting myself in that position and then seeing how would I have reacted. And so let that be me as an Indian woman in Tanzania, me as an Indian woman in the Netherlands, me as an Indian woman in India. So how would I navigate my own ways? And when I bring that to the table, it's something new, it's something different in this sector also. So more often than not, I have been fortunate enough to been appreciated for that. And yeah, but then there are your ups and downs, but it's yeah, part of the game.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, do you have um a lot of times we talk about women, what we as women need to do if we want to get into leadership, what we as women need to, do differently, learn differently, practice differently, fix ourselves essentially. But there is also the fact that we're part of a team, and you have, those people within your company that if someone, overlooks you and goes and talks to the man who is just there delivering, donuts, do they say no, you need to not talk to Meghna, she's the real expert on this? Do you have those people who are really putting,
Yeah.
supporting you?
Yes.
It's not just mentoring and advising quietly on the side, but really taking a stand for the women, and this is what we need to do, folks. We have to find those people who will take a stand for us, even be a protector in those, in some situations where they say, oh, we don't talk to people at your level.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, absolutely. And I think it was this week only. Sometimes you start to doubt yourself as an expert, or as any kind of knowledgeable person, to be, say, the very least. That my studies, my experiences are worthy enough, and I am yeah, just good enough to do this project. And but then I have my team of colleagues, and they were quite supportive in saying that, no, but you have done this, but you have worked on gender, and you have worked on water, so why won't you go forward? And it kind of helps you in developing that kind of confidence again, right? That, yeah, I have done something in my life. I know what I'm talking about. I'm not just talking from just from a high position, but I am talking from experience. And you don't see that often. You see people taking other people down, that, yeah, 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 you're not good enough, what will you know, or how will you do it? But yeah, like I kind of surround myself with people who are a bit more supportive to me. And I don't hesitate also to ask for help. I think people often think that asking for help is kind of weakness, but it's nice that if you are doubting yourself or if you are feeling a bit vulnerable, it's good to talk to such people if you have them, and they will give you that kind of boost which is necessary to go forward.
Yeah, I think back to, and one of the reasons we're doing the summit, folks, is first of all, I never wanted to talk about these issues. I was one of those young women who thought, oh, this was all old women's lib stuff. I can get the right degrees. I can learn, how to do things. I can model after, leaders. I can find the right mentors. Of course, all my mentors were men. And and I got to as high as I could go in the company where I was at, and people have watched other videos that the
Yeah.
story of being the first woman eligible to become an associate at a firm that in the engineering division where there were individuals who did not want women
Yeah.
in the clubhouse. But when I hung my shingle, and I was especially doing it in an area that I had really carved a niche out for myself. I had been the person assigned 10, 12 years earlier when I worked for the state of North Carolina to figure out how to permit the first aquifer storage recovery system in the state. And
Mm.
throughout the country, and there's a lot of ASR in India as well, and there are questions about how do you make sure that you're not taking one quality of water and you put it down a well and it mixes with something else and then it contaminates it and it's hard to fix or whatever. The science was figured out, but there were still regulations that basically treated that water as waste disposal, right? I was the undisputed expert, the guy who actually was the forefront of the technology, who literally wrote the textbook on this technology. He had me write his chapter on the policy and regulatory issues.
Yeah.
And there's like a box at the top of the chapter. And I wanted to do something. So I was about 39 at the time, right? And this especially for all the millennials are now turning 40, right? And I, after years and years of finding mentors and then I was out there on my own. I had just come off a National Academy of Sciences study committee, at least 10 years younger than the next youngest person on the committee, and I had to do something I call embrace your inner expert,
Well, yeah.
right? Talk
Yeah.
about embracing your inner child. This is embrace your inner, at some point you have to say, wait a minute, I'm not going to go look for the expert. I am the,
Yeah.
and there were guys who didn't like that. That
Mm.
did not go over well. That I was actually the person that I would have guys say, "Oh, I want to work with you." I'd share my material with them, and they would publish my work under their name.
Mm.
I would have guys who would say they want to work with me, and I'd have a meeting with them. They'd try to pull me into their hotel room, and they say, "Oh, I thought that's what you wanted."
Yeah.
I mean, there are guys who do not like women
Taking
stepping
them.
into that leadership role.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
really triggers guys who have that
Yeah.
issue. And it's not all men, obviously. Most men, they don't even see it. They wouldn't even imagine thinking that a woman couldn't be
Yeah.
uh, as capable of qualified. But for those men who do have a problem with that, you really have a problem with that. So it's something to be aware of as we get into that, have that courage to step up and knowing that there may be some who don't like you being a leader.
Yeah, yeah. And then, of course, you are labeled as bossy or you're labeled as arrogant rather than having being, stern and proper deadlines. Then you are maybe having mood swings. Maybe you are at that time of the month and that's why you're behaving bossy. So all these kind of comments do come, and sometimes you are so passionate and you're not articulating properly. You're not diplomatic enough to say all things correct, but you understand what you mean to say. But then they're like, yeah, yeah, but that's not how things are done. Things have to be done, small and simple and diplomatic. But if we are passionate enough about some cause, then yeah, we are women who have emotions, so we let our emotions play wild. So but yeah, there are a lot of labels, and of course I agree with, there are men who support and who inspire us also sometimes to take on. They will give us the platform and they will help, and they are happy enough to share the platform. But not just men, but even women kind of label each other sometimes as bossy and arrogant, that she went ahead because of some reasons. So it's kind of the mindset that we are also working with. So it is 2023 and we are having this UN water conference, and we are bringing the women leaders over here, through this platform. And when will that be that we are going, say, one step further, where we are not just looking at male and female, but other spectrums of the whole gender class? So it's good that we are at least talking about this now, but it just makes me wonder that how long will it be, till we go to the other narratives and other discourses.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. I think we definitely have to talk about this stuff, and I think it's important that we make some of these conversations available in private online spaces like this,
Yeah.
and that are more accessible, that women can watch without having to leave the kids and leave home, and in between putting clothes in the washer or whatever, and then they can watch the video or something like that,
Yeah.
if they're in that situation. That um there was a lot of resistance to doing anything virtual for a very right.
Hmm.
And women often have less mobility. The man has the car, the woman doesn't, right? And have less, are more tied to home and caretaking, or having to go take care of an elderly parent and this, that, and
Yeah.
the other thing. And to be able to, nobody in the water space wanted to go virtual. We started this in 2012, and nobody wanted to go virtual because everything had to be in the room in these really expensive association conferences.
Yeah.
It's $1,500 if you're not a member to go to a big water conference and find out the latest and greatest of stuff. In many cases, by public agencies funded by public money. And yet, that's the only place you can find out what's going on.
Yeah.
And that's where people do business, and that's where big deals are made and that sort of thing. So it tends to be mainly men. And even with large companies, they're hiring more women if they're more at a junior level. They're not getting into the
Yeah.
discussion. And so I hope for those of you watching, please do type in the chat. I am as we open, so right now at the time I'm recording this, we're still getting the registration together. We want to make sure that we actually ask people to put in your full name and where you're from, and share something about yourself so that we know who's in the audience, so that we can hold a safe container, right? When we're doing planning meetings, this is something we talk about as facilitators. It might look easy to just get up there and talk, but how do you create and hold a safe container where people can be open and talk to each other and have those conversations? That whole diplomatic Robert Rules of Order, all that stuff, there's a reason for that. And to be able to create the safe spaces online, these videos, folks, people are not going to just blast them out everywhere. That's why right before we got on, we were talking about the need to make sure that we branded all the videos, that we have, that we protected all the videos, so that people don't just rip them and share them all over the place and take them in context, because people are really opening up about things. So, we're getting real here, and we're talking about things that often people don't talk about.
Yeah.
So, Meghna, thank you so much for reaching out to me. So
Yes.
most of the people who were on this were invited, and I did open them and say, hey, we really got a great story to tell. Please reach out to me. And I'm so glad that you did. And is there any information that you want to share on the page? We'll have places on the page where you can have a link to how to reach you, or if you've got studies from your company about women of water, and to really get that understanding of women working in water, as well as the impacts on women of decisions about our water infrastructure, right?
Yeah. No, I can surely share my email address can surely be shared as my LinkedIn account. I think over there I have most of my publications shared. So I think yeah, anybody who wants to get in touch for any kind of knowledge or networking is of course free to contact me. Yes.
Fantastic. All
Yeah.
right. Well, thanks so much for being here. Thanks for your flexibility. I had to move the time around a little bit.
Yeah.
And I got to go get ready for another interview. And folks, keep coming back. Check out all of our interviews. I think we're going to have about 50 by now. Incredible conversation. Incredible to have you here. We're
Thank you
so
so
glad you're
much.
here. And we're so glad you're here as well. Take care.
Yep.
Bye bye,
Thank you
folks.
so much.
Thanks so much for joining us for this extraordinary conversation, one of 45 extraordinary conversations we had as part of the Women of Water Get Real virtual summit, where we explored where and why women are leaking from the water career pipeline, how we can stop those leaks, and even bring women back to water. I hope that you will enjoy all of these amazing interviews. If you don't have a chance to watch all of them during the summit, you have the opportunity to join us with a power pack and get lifetime access to all the videos, as well as an opportunity to join us for 30 days in a brand new community where we will dig even deeper in live facilitated conversations about some of the issues that are facing women in water. Look forward to seeing you there. Please join us at watercitizen.org/women, watercitizen.org/women for more information. See you again soon.